Hello, my name is Gary, and I was raised in the Western United States, so I'm a native English speaker. I hope that you will enjoy this YouTube channel. Thank you for joining us.
IELTS writing samples.
The table below shows information regarding the changes in the percentage of the population aged 65 and above in 3 countries. The table provides information on the percentage of the population aged 65 and above in Canada, Germany, and the UK in 1998 and 2000, as well as predictions for 2030. Overall, the elderly population is predicted to increase in all 3 countries from 1998 to 2030. The highest proportion of older people was in Germany, which will remain at its highest level in 2030, while the lowest proportion can be seen in the UK over the period mentioned. From 1995 to 2000, the elderly populations in Canada and Germany increased by about 5% to 20.67% and 25.32% respectively. On the other hand, the UK showed relatively little change in the proportion of the population aged 65 plus, and remain below 15% in both years. By 2030, it is expected that the population of people aged 65 and above will increase by approximately 5.5% in all 3 countries. The rate of forecasts to reach 30.42% in Germany, 26.35% in Canada, and 20.35% in the UK.
The table below gives information on the salaries of secondary teachers in 5 countries in 2009. The given table illustrates a comparison of the teachers' incomes at schools in 5 different countries in 2009. Overall, teachers in Luxembourg earned the highest salary, but it took quite a long time to reach the top salary. In contrast, those in Australia and Denmark, despite being the lowest wage group, reached their maximum salary in the shortest time. Teachers in Luxembourg had the highest initial income at $80,000 per year. After 15 years of work, their salary increased to $112,000, and it took them 30 years to reach the highest salary of $139,000. Australia and Denmark showed a different pattern. Teachers in these countries could earn the maximum salaries in less than 10 years. However, their salaries were among the lowest, with a maximum salary of only $48,000 in Australia and $54,000 in Denmark. Teachers in South Korea and Japan took the longest to achieve the maximum salary at 37 and 34 years, respectively. These countries also had the lowest starting salaries, with average salaries of $30,500 in Korea and $28,000 in Japan. The table below gives information about languages with the most native speakers. Summarize the information by selecting and reporting the main features and make comparisons where relevant. The table illustrates the number of native speakers of 6 languages as well as the number of people who speak these languages as an additional language. It is worth noting that the number of Mandarin Chinese speakers is significantly higher than other languages, with over 1 billion speakers. 900 million people speak Mandarin as a first language, but only 190 million people speak Mandarin Chinese as an additional language. In contrast, those who speak English as an additional language outnumber native speakers of English. 603 and 339 millions, respectively. The total number of Hindi speakers, 490 million, is almost equal to that of Spanish speakers, 420 million. When it comes to speaking these languages as an additional language, the number for Hindi, 120 million, is much higher than that for Spanish, 70 million. Native speakers of Arabic and Portuguese are roughly similar in number at 206 million and 203 million, respectively. However, the number of people who speak Arabic as an additional language, 24 million, is almost 2.5 times higher than those who speak Portuguese as an additional language.
The table below gives information about past and projected population figures in various countries for different years. Summarize the information by selecting and reporting the main features and make comparisons where relevant. The table shows the population numbers from 1990 and 2020 with projections to 2050 in 4 different countries. Overall, all countries surveyed witnessed an increase in population size until 2050. The fastest rise is expected to be in the U.S. With 249.9 million people in 1990, the U.S. population reached 320.6 million in 2020, and this number is predicted to rise to 349.6 million in 2050. Similarly, there were 26.6 million people in Canada in 1990 before this number increased to 31 million a decade later, and the figure for 2050 could be 39 million. Meanwhile, starting from 17.1 million people in 1990, the population size in Australia reached 19.2 million people in 2000, and it is projected that this number would be 26 million in 2050. New Zealand, which had lower population figures than those countries mentioned above, saw an increase from just 3.4 million in 1990 to 3.8 million in 2000, before reaching 4.7 million people in 2050, according to the forecast. The table below gives information on consumer spending on different items in 5 different countries in 2002. Summarize the information by selecting and reporting the main features and make comparisons where relevant. The table shows the percentage of consumer spending in 3 categories of products and services in 5 countries in 2002. It is clear that the largest proportion of consumer spending in each country was on food, beverages, and tobacco. On the other hand, the leisure education category had the lowest percentage in the table. Among the 5 countries, consumer spending on food, drinks, and tobacco was significantly higher in Turkey at 32.14% and Ireland at nearly 29%. The proportion of spending on leisure and education was also highest in Turkey at 4.35%, while expenditures on clothing and footwear was significantly higher in Italy at 9% comparing to any other countries. It can be seen that Sweden had the lowest proportions of national consumer expenditures for food, drinks, tobacco, and for clothing, footwear at nearly 16% and just over 5% respectively. Spain had slightly higher figures for these categories, but the lowest figure for leisure education at only 1.98%.